Here we are. Here we are 1 week from opening day where the Mets will host the Milwaukee Brewers, David Stern's former team. And I'm such a sucker, man. I'll admit it. I'm a sucker. I told myself I wouldn't get overly excited, but I can't help it. There's something about this sport in particular. I can't help but get excited for opening day, no matter the personnel, no matter what, no matter if I'm stupid and wrong for feeling this way, no matter what, I get excited. But it's different this year because my expectations are not to the moon. I'm going into this year not expecting a World Series championship by the end of the year where this team's going to be playing deep in October, playing maybe even games in November. I'm not anticipating that this year. If it happens, then I will absolutely sign the dotted line for that right now for that to happen. And I will absolutely be thrilled with that. I just don't realistically think that's what this team is going to be. But I think this team's going to be fun. I think they're going to surprise some people. And I think they're going to be a very competitive team for the most part this season. And listen, this is coming from somebody that usually is not like this. I am not like this normally. And going into the year with the Rangers, I was actually very optimistic. This is the New York Rangers I'm talking about, because if you couldn't tell, I was very optimistic going into the Rangers here, and right now they're sitting in first place. Granted, there are things I'm personally worried about with them, but we're not going to talk about New York Rangers. I'm optimistic from the standpoint of they're going to be competitive, and I am firmly believing that this team is going to grab a wild card spot. Maybe I end up being wrong. Maybe I'm crazy, but in my opinion, I think that this team could be I think they're in the range with a team like the Padres, the Diamondbacks, teams like that who are kind of up for grabs, grabbing that last wildcard spot. Maybe if you want to throw the Giants in there, I don't know where you'd put them now that they got Blake Snell. They're a weird team, though. I could see them finishing second, or I could see them finishing fourth, or just any of those NL West teams, because I think the Phillies are a class ahead of the Mets for sure. I think that's the top wildcard team, as long as the Braves don't fall apart, that is, because if they do, then the Braves would be the top wildcard spot, undeniably. Then I think it's up in the air between the Mets, the Padres, the Diamondbacks, the Giants. I don't really see any team from the Central going out there and maybe grabbing a spot. I think the Cubs win that division, but I digress. Before I jump further into everything, leave a like here if you do enjoy it. Subscribe if you guys are new, especially if you're Met fans, and turn on your notifications so you know when I upload or go live next. Don't really have a structure to this one. I'm just going to ramble and just give my thoughts on this team and, what I'm feeling excited about, because we're a week away. I'm going to be at Citi Field for that game as well. So going to be in attendance there. Hopefully it doesn't get rained out, because as of right now, I think there's rain on the forecast there for the game. So let's hope that doesn't end up being the case, because that's the last thing that I would want, is a rained out game and then it ends up being Friday. The crowd's less into it because of the fact that some people took off to go to the game on Thursday, and then they can't commit to a Friday game. Regardless, though, I'm very excited to see what this team is going to be. Jose Quintana gets the bump on opening day. I get why they're going with Quintana. He was here last year, and then obviously Senga's hurt, so that's the huge blow. Like, Senga being hurt is really a huge blow to this team in terms of the excitement for opening day, because I was just having visions of it for months, just going to opening day, Kodai Senga taking the bump, and the Mets cruise their way. Diaz comes in the ninth inning. It's a 4-1 ball game. He shuts the door, and we go home happy. That's kind of what I envisioned the first game being for months, but obviously Senga being hurt throws a wrench into that, and I don't know when he's even going to come back. There was reports that he was making progress, and there was reports that he's all of a sudden having stops in his progress. I don't know where we're at now in terms of that, but hopefully, fingers crossed, Kodai Senga will be ready to go in a couple months. But I get why Quintana gets the opening day start. I personally think Severino should have got it. That's who I wanted them to give it to, or just for the memes, give it to Tyler McGill. But yeah, I understand why they went with Quintana. He was here last year. You go with him. It makes a lot of sense, but man, Luis Severino, the way he's looked this spring, and he even said it, this is going to be the first spring I'm going through in a very long time where I'm healthy. Since 2018, he was saying. that's a huge deal for not just him in terms of, and this team in terms of needing him on the field. It's a huge deal for him mentally, because think of the mental toll it must have taken on this dude to go through the spring, time in and time out, or a couple springs where he's either getting hurt or he can't even pitch in spring. Imagine how much that boosts his confidence and just him mentally as a person, getting through a full spring healthy, thinking, yeah, let's go. I'm ready to pitch a dominant season and be the Severino that I've been in years past. Do I think he's going to be a Cy Young level pitcher like we've seen? Listen, I wouldn't rule it out, because he does have that type of stuff that it could happen. Granted, again, he did have a poor season last year. Obviously, I'm not going to pretend he didn't. I still think he finishes somewhere with the 3 to 3.5 ERA range. You get that from Luis Severino and you run with it. And I think that exceeds expectations from what you're getting, because a lot of people think he's going to stink. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic and I'm drinking the Kool-Aid of opening day only being a week from today. But I am really excited for what Luis Severino could be for this rotation. And I really think that there's a legitimate chance he surprises people. I truly do. And then, like I was mentioning with the rotation, since I guess we'll stick on that subject, Tyler McGill won the last roster spot, according to Mendoza, it looks like, since obviously it wasn't going to be Senga since he's hurt. And then the other guys that were in the mix, Jose Budo, which he did have a very good spring. Like, there was a lot of competition, which is really nice to see as well, that this team did not make it easy for him to win that roster spot. Like, Jose Budo in 10 innings pitched had 9 strikeouts, a 1.010 whip, 0.90 ERA. And his stuff, like, on top of that, looked really good in terms of you look at just the metrics and stuff with his pitches. Joey Lucchesi, he only got 1 inning of work. He didn't end up winning the spot, but it was definitely a close battle. And then Peterson's obviously hurt. So this wasn't just a one-man show. And I would expect Jose Budo to make an impact for this team at some point. Maybe he starts off in the minors. They call him up a little bit early to, you know, get the rotation to just ease into the season a bit. Have the rotation ease in. I don't see anything wrong with that. And who knows, Tyler McGill, maybe he's so good this year that when Senga comes back, you run with a 6-man rotation, which that would be very ideal, which that new pitch for Tyler McGill looks so good, by the way. He didn't have a good last start in spring. I know that that's the thing that people are scared about right now, is he stunk in his last start where he allowed, 4 runs against Washington and 3 2/3. But I'm not too worried about that, because he had a lot of good starts this spring. And again, I think we're past the point of the hype of Tyler McGill, because at one point when he came up, we were all hyped up. Like, let's be real. That's just what we do as Met fans. We overhype guys, where we thought this guy was going to be the next big deal. And, you know, we said about Lugo, which he was a very solid starter, ended up being a relief pitcher here, obviously. But we said similar things about him, Robert Gazelman. Like, we overhype pitchers when they come up here. I think he could be a very good piece for this rotation. If that new pitch that he has, like, if he could carry that over to the regular season and make it a very effective pitch there, and it does work out, I think that Tyler McGill is another guy that's going to surprise people. I'm loving what Sean Manaea is going to be. Cut the hair, which I don't love personally from, you know, just a brand standpoint. I like the flow from Manaea, but in terms of what he has done on the field, very solid there. Adrian Hauser as well. How could I forget him? And you have guys really hyping him up, saying that he might be a sneaky good pitcher for this team. I'm bought in on what he's going to be as a back end of the rotation piece. Again, another one where let's pump the brakes on what he's going to be. And let's be honest, he's not going to be some ridiculous top end of the rotation piece, but they have the depth. And he's another one too. Not a good start to end the spring. Kind of boosted his numbers, inflated them to look bad. But I still have high hopes for what he could be in terms of just a consistent guy that takes the ball every 5th day, allows 3 to 5 runs, and hopefully your offense could go out there and make up for the runs that he's going to give up. He'll give you 5 innings or so. On a good day, he'll give you 6, and it will be what it will be. And I would not be shocked even if they utilize him in a smart way, because like I've mentioned on this channel before, I think you're going to see the usage be so different in terms of the pitching and just the roster in general, which I will get to the lineup in terms of that standpoint because there's a lot to get to there. But I think in terms of the pitching side of things, you're going to see a different approach. You're going to see a different approach with the rotation, and you might see Adrian Houser get yanked after 4 innings, and we're not happy about it, but that's what's telling you, you know, a certain part of the order's coming up. It's not in the favor of Adrian Houser. Let's get him out of the game, or, you know, let's have him only throw a certain amount of pitches. At a certain amount of pitches, he starts to tail off. Let's get him out of the game before it's too late. And then obviously I'd like Mendoza to mix in a gut feeling every now and then. I don't want it to strictly be an analytical approach, because if Adrian Houser is going out there and chucking a no-hitter, but the analytics tell you, all right, well, he's going through the top of the order for the 3rd time against the Atlanta Braves. He's going against Ronald Acuna next inning. You have like a 2-run lead. I'm willing to roll the dice there. If he's rocking a no-hitter there, like every now and then, maybe you roll the dice there. I'm not saying that, you know, it's the right scenario. Obviously, it depends on what's happening there, but you're going to see a different approach. And I'm for whatever approach it takes, as long as it wins baseball games. Because if it doesn't, that's when I'll have problems, and that's when I'll be pissed off that, you know, maybe you do need to go with your gut more, or vice versa, where you're going with your gut too much and you need to do a look at the analytics a bit and see what it's saying to you and telling you. With this rotation, though, I like the 5 that they're rocking with going into the year. Again, there is no sexy name, but that's just the nature of this year in general. There's not a lot of sexy names on this roster outside of the stars that have been there, like Lindor, like Alonso, Diaz, who's going to come back and make a big impact. But on the pitching standpoint, of course, there's not really, outside of Diaz, a legitimate superstar. And then Senga, you know, could be a I wouldn't say superstar, I'd say star. For Kodai Senga, you want to see him put it together for another year, but yeah, that's what it's going to be this year. You're feeling it out with what this roster is, and that's why I'm sold on this, because this is a feel it out year. Next year, you go out and spend the bucks on a better free agent class. You obviously got to go get the guys, and you got to prove that you're going to do it, but I'm on board and can co-sign the fact that there is a plan. That's something that I've been screaming for from this organization time and time again. You guys know it. You could go back to previous podcast episodes, whatever it may be. I've just been screaming for a direction. That's all I've been asking for, and it feels like there's finally a direction with this organization in terms of who they want to be. And that I could get on board with. And what they want to be is a team that, you know, builds from within with the farm system, builds a deep prospect pool, and are able to pull from within, but also spend the big money to go out and get guys when they need to fill a void and they don't have the deepest prospect pool, or they use the prospect pool as ammo to go get superstars, where, again, in previous years, it hasn't been that way. And the payroll's in such a bad spot right now because they tried to just, you know, plug in the roster with spending a bunch of money and getting these old veterans, not having anybody really come through the prospect pool, and just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and see if it sticks. Not the recipe. You got to build from within. And in hindsight, I'm sure Steve Cohen, even though it would have been hard to sell the fan base at the time, I'm sure he would say he wishes he went in this sort of direction when he first bought the team. But you live and you learn. And this is where we are now. With the bullpen side of things, I'm curious what's going to happen there. I mean, Phil Bickford, he's not winning a roster spot. He's had a rough spring. I think Diekman's a safe pick to make the roster. Fujinami's been very disappointing. I'm very upset with what he's been this spring. He does have a minor league option. I wouldn't be shocked if they utilize that. Jorge Lopez, I'm anticipating. He's had a solid spring. Ottavino, solid one. Raley, very good spring as well. He's going to make the roster. Yohan Ramirez hasn't allowed a run this spring, so he might crack his way onto the opening day roster, especially because Phil Bickford sure as hell is not. Sean Reed Foley, I think he's dealing with a bit of an injury, which sucks because he was actually having a very good spring, and he finished off He came back last year, had a very solid couple innings, small sample size, but I was intrigued with what Sean Reed-Foley could be. He's never going to be the top prospect he was in Toronto, but I was intrigued with what Sean Reed-Foley could be. Drew Smith actually having a pretty solid spring, so he's probably going to make the roster. Tonkin having a very solid spring. And that's probably what you're looking at. And then obviously Diaz there to close out games. So I'm not sure. I'd have to figure out how many pitchers that is. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sounds about right. Get 7 to 8 guys in the bullpen. And if they are going to pick someone to not make it from that grouping there, I don't know who it's going to be and how they're going to pick it, because all those guys have been very good. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'm confident no matter what decision they make in terms of that sort of deal. And I trust David Stearns to pick the roster out. He's done it in Milwaukee. We have a guy that has been there, done that you could trust sort of deal here, which is very nice. But that's really all I got in terms of the pitching side of things. We'll talk about the lineup because people are up in arms about the whole idea of the lineup, because there was the whole thing that, oh no, they got Jeff McNeil hitting cleanup. So let me walk you guys through what the lineup looks like right now in terms of what it was the last spring training game where all the starters played and everybody was in an uproar about it. It was against the Cardinals, I believe, and they won that game too. But fans were in an uproar about the lineup. So here we go. It was it this game? It was this game with Sean Manaea on the bump. So Brandon Nimmo leading off. I don't think that's going to change. I've said before that I wouldn't mind if they wanted to try Nimmo out of the leadoff spot. But if you want to leave him there, I'm all for that too. I think it makes sense. He's been there. He's comfortable with it. And I don't hate the idea of leaving him there. Francisco Lindor in the 2-hole. I like the idea of hitting him there still. I think it's better than having Marte hit second and forcing that. I like Pete third in the order a lot. I really just like the idea of that being the top 3. It does get tricky when it gets to the cleanup spot because Jeff McNeil isn't your prototypical cleanup hitter, but I mean, the game's not necessarily still in style of that sort of deal, and it's not like you have to have the best power guy hitting cleanup like we would see Buck Showalter do, which made me want to throw up because you guys know I didn't like Buck Showalter one bit. But regardless, Jeff McNeil hitting cleanup. I don't love the idea. I don't hate it. I don't know, because who else were you going to throw there? The only other guy that I really thought maybe you throw in the cleanup spot is Francisco Alvarez, but I kind of like the idea of him hitting 6. You get Marte hitting 5th. Marte's been kind of brutal this spring, but don't hate the idea there. And then you get Beatty, Vientos, Bader. Bader, I think, is a lock to hit 9th, as well as that top 3. I think you look at 4 through 8 as kind of the mixed bag of where you're going to see the most changes throughout the year. But I think the top 3, as long as things are rolling well, I think that's what you're going to see the top 3 of the lineup be most of the year, which I really like the idea of that because, you know, Nimmo gets on base to lead off, you hope, and then Lindor maybe drives in a run. You get Pete up with Lindor on second, maybe get a run, or, you know, Nimmo gets a leadoff double, Lindor gets out. Heaven forbid. I like the idea of Pete Alonso getting up there in that spot. So, yeah, I don't hate the idea of the lineup there. Again, it's just tricky because you'd like someone better in that cleanup spot than McNeil, but I don't hate the thought process of having him there. And in terms of what the roster is going to look like with the bats, I mean, Alvarez and Narvaez are locks. Both of them actually having very solid spring, so I'm saying that surprisingly more so for Narvaez because Alvarez I expect to be very good for this team, of course. Narvaez, not the best, but you'll take it for what it is from a backup catcher at this point. As long as he's better than last year, you take it because he stunk last year. Pete Alonso's had a very good spring. Brett Beatty, he's been heating up quietly towards the end. I saw a tweet about his numbers as of lately that, like, since it turned to March, the calendar, he's kind of been more noticeable this spring. So I'll take that. We could get a good Brett Beatty going here, then I would love that. I mean, yeah, like since March, he's got what? He went 1 for 3, one game, 0 for 3 the next game, which sucks, but he went 1 for 2 against the Yankees, 1 for 3, 2 for 4, 0 for 2, 1 for 2, 1 for 3 for 2 straight games, 0 for 3, and then 1 for 3. You want more, but as long as he could get on the right path. Lindor, not having the best spring, but I'm not worried there. McNeil, he only got 2 at-bats so far. He's dealing with some injury stuff right now. Not sure what's going to go on there. Vientos showing some good power, but if he's not doing that, he's not really making that much of an impact because he's not getting on base a lot. He's pretty much living and dying by the long ball, which I don't know how to feel about it because on one hand, like I don't know. I on one hand, you'll hate that from a DH, a guy that's, giving you a lot of power, but you want to see him get on base more. I don't know. I still have hope for Vientos, as crazy as it might sound. I do, but you got to give him a shot. Joey Wendell's having an unbelievable spring for some reason. Harrison Bader, he hit a 300-foot line drive home run this spring, which is hilarious. He's been all right. Marte, not great. Nimmo, okay. But again, you expect him to turn around come the regular season. Then you got guys like Tyrone Taylor, who's been good. DJ Stewart and G-Man Choi, it looks like, are battling out that last lineup spot, which interesting because neither have really been great. So, and they're both left-handed bats, so you kind of expect one of them to win the spot. I don't know where they go with that. I really don't, because neither of them have been great. Unless they go with a surprise move. Unless they go with a surprise move and maybe somebody we're not talking about wins a spot. I don't love the idea of, on paper, of Zach Short getting a roster spot, but in terms of just a pure hitting standpoint, he has hit better than both of them. And both the guys that we're talking about here are supposed to be DHs, platoon DHs for this team. I don't know. And I'm trying to look at the 40-man roster. Who else? Alex Ramirez is there. He's not going to make it. Unfortunately, Mauricio out for the year. He would be the no-doubt guy to make the roster. Acuna not really ready. Outside of that, you don't really got a whole lot much there. And then you look at the non-roster invites. Not a lot there either. I mean, maybe Luke Voigt sneaks a spot, but he hasn't been good either. So I'm not really going to roll the dice there. Ben Gamel, he's not been good either. Unless you roll the dice there. Like, I'm surprised Tracy Thompson didn't get an extended look, but I'm also not. I don't know. Unless, because Drew Gilbert's not ready. So they're not going to rush him up. I don't know. We're probably not going to like the decision regardless, but I think that it's going to be G-Man Choi because DJ Stewart does have minor league options still. So they probably will take advantage of that and then just rock with G-Man Choi for now. And then he'll probably get cut at some point. But probably what your roster is going to look like, honestly, in terms of the rundown there. You got Diekman, Diaz, Hauser, Lopez, Minaya, McGill. Wait, I actually want to count this out as I go. So we got Diekman, Diaz, Hauser, Lopez, Minaya, McGill, Ottavino, Quintana, Raley, Ramirez, Senga, Severino, Smith, Tonkin. I think that's 14 pitchers. So one would have to get cut there, unfortunately. I don't know who it's going to be. Like, you can't justify Johan Ramirez not making this roster with the way he's looked this spring. That's going to be a tough decision. But Fujinami's probably not going to make it for sure now. He's probably going to start, and it sucks because I was very excited about him. But I wouldn't be shocked if he gets called up. There's injuries. Injuries happen, of course. So at some point, we're going to see Fuji. But, and then you look at the lineup-wise. Alvarez, Narvaez, Alonso, Beatty, Lindor, McNeil, Vientos, Wendell, Bader, Marte, Nimmo, Taylor, and one a Stewart or Choi, probably Choi. So probably what your roster looks like. And I don't hate it. Don't really hate it one bit. So yeah, we're only a week away. And I cannot believe that we are already here. It feels like just yesterday I was talking about the season just going down the drain and the trade deadline being miserable. And I just felt numb at that point. I just felt so numb to what was going on with this team. And I was like, I was just so down the dumps. I was so down. And now we're here and I'm excited. And I cannot even believe that we're already in March to begin with, which is just crazy. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Am I drinking the Kool-Aid too much? Am I overly excited? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. To give my final prediction, I say third place in the NL East. And I will say the third wildcard team. I think they get in as the third wildcard team with about 84, 85 wins. That's my take, my prediction. If I'm wrong, I'll eat crow, but I'm going to be a little optimistic right now because I'm drinking the Kool-Aid here of optimism. But let me know your thoughts. Leave a like if you haven't, subscribe if you haven't, turn on your notifications so you know when I upload or go live next. I'll probably upload next the post game for the season, unless maybe I do a podcast episode, another podcast giving more prediction type things. I don't know. We'll see. But I will see you guys in the next one nonetheless. And let's go Mets.